Coneheads are part of American culture thanks to Saturday Night Live. Now, in fact, they're even selling us car insurance. Welcome to SkyWatchTV. I'm Derek Gilbert with a special in-studio guest today. Coneheads, those with conical-shaped heads, have been discovered on almost every continent on planet Earth. And our guest is a gentleman who went to a country that's well known for remains of people with unusual shaped craniums or cranial deformation. That is the nation of Peru. The director and host of the forthcoming documentary series called True Legends. We welcome Timothy Alberino to the studio. Timothy, welcome to SkyWatch TV.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
The documentary series, the first episode, Technology of the Fallen, took you to Bolivia and Peru. Why
Yes.
did you choose that location?
For a number of reasons. For one thing, I spent a lot of time in Peru. I knew the culture. We were also following up on David Flynn's work. He did some investigations into the geoglyphs of Tiwanaku. And also we wanted to go and look at what we believe are some of the best evidence for giants and for a pre-flood culture possessing high technology.
Mm-hmm.
And Peru and Bolivia are fantastic places for those.
Now, some of those locations have been pretty well covered by secular television series like Ancient Aliens. Now, I know back in 2012, Smithsonian Magazine published an article that was titled Idiocy, Fabrications, and Lies of Ancient Aliens. Presumably, if I had to guess, you came up with some different conclusions than
That's another reason why we went there, yeah, because, you know, I've watched the Ancient Aliens series, and I like a lot of what they do, but obviously they're not coming from a biblical narrative. And because they're not coming from a biblical narrative, they have to conjecture a whole lot. In fact, one of the things that we wanted to do was go and do a better analysis of the actual sites, like, for example, Pumapunku, Tiwanaku, and get up close to those megalithic stones and see what's actually there, because you don't actually see a lot of the sites in some of those programs. It's real flashy, real fast moving, and you have a lot of talking heads, but you don't actually have a good analysis of what's there. And we found some very surprising things, and people will see it in the documentary, concerning what's actually present at Tiwanaku.
One of the aspects of the approach to the Ancient Aliens series that drives me nuts is that they ask a lot of open-ended questions. The implication being, if they ask the question, could it be that ... Or like the internet meme I'm sure you've seen with a picture of the crazy-haired guy saying, I'm not saying it's aliens, but it was aliens.
But it's aliens, yeah, the T-shirt, yeah.
What conclusions did you reach? What were some of the things that maybe surprised you, or maybe the thing that surprised you the most when you were there on site? What was it that really impressed you?
Well, Peru and Bolivia are very different. Peru's very open to tourism. There's a lot freer access to the different megalithic sites. Once you cross the border into Bolivia, at a little town called Desaguadero on the border, you're entering into a military state, basically a police state situation, especially when you get around the ruins of Tiwanaku. The Ministry of Culture in Bolivia has the entire area locked down. And we were told that 5 weeks before we got there, they instituted new security measures. They've got guys walking around with guns and you know, lots of guards and police officers and military guys now, and they have a special sort of a police force that comes from the villages. It's actually, they recruit people from the villages, and so a lot of the artifacts, a lot of the megaliths are roped off. They don't even want you touching them at this point, which we found to be very irritating, but we were able to get around that. We just kind of distracted them, and some of our guys did some distracting, and the rest of us jumped the lines, and because you got to get up close. I mean, if you're going to do a proper analysis and you're going to be honest with people, you have to get up close. You have to get the cameras on the megaliths. And you also have to go back into the history. You have to go back and look at what is the history of this place in terms of what did the Inca believe about what they saw at Tiwanaku. What are the legends? What are the myths? And also, what did the conquistadors think? Because when the conquistadors came to Tiwanaku and the chroniclers, there was a lot more there to be seen than what's there now. So we were very interested to know what was their take. And you asked what one of the more incredible things was to discover that the conquistadors, the chroniclers, and the Inca all believed that the megaliths in Peru were built by a pre-flood civilization. And I'm not superimposing this idea of a great flood, a biblical flood, onto their accounts.
So they have flood stories in their culture.
This is what they say. This is what the Incas say. This is what the well, obviously the conquistadors were Catholic, the Spanish conquistadors and the chroniclers. So they were coming from a perspective of a pre-flood world when they were looking at these incredible megaliths. But the Inca, all the natives, in fact, knew that there was a pre-flood world. There were giants. There were the gods that existed before the Great Flood. And that what you're looking at Pumapunku, especially Pumapunku and Sacsayhuaman and some of the stuff at Ollantaytambo, is pre-flood. It occurred before the Great Flood that destroyed those great civilizations that were pre-Inca.
Why do you think the Bolivian government is so reluctant to have people look at these remains, this site up close?
No, there's a number of reasons. For one thing, I think they're getting a lot of attention because of Ancient Aliens.
Sure.
So I think a lot of people have gone themselves with cameras and want to get up close and measure things and touch the stones. They're probably irritated about that.
Well, yes, you can understand they'd want to protect those.
Yeah, but it's not really about protection because you're dealing with andesite stone. You're dealing with humongous blocks of andesite. Touching that andesite isn't going to do anything to it. The real issue is the state-sanctioned narrative that they're protecting. And so their narrative, and you hear it everywhere you go in Tiahuanaco. All the guides say the exact same thing. You feel like, again, it's like a police state over there. And if you don't go along with what they're saying, they get very irritated. Believe me, we know that firsthand at this point. And their narrative is basically that everything that you see in that area in Tiahuanaco was built somewhere between 500 and 900 AD. That's basically what they're saying, which is a load of crock, really. I mean, it's so evident. Most of what is at Pumapunku is buried 6 feet under the ground. Only 10% of that whole area has been excavated.
Really?
Only 10%. And much of what has been excavated, they stopped. For some reason, they decided to stop at Pumapunku, where the most incredible stuff is. And the Bolivian military at one time used what was there as target practice.
Kind of like Napoleon did with the pyramids.
Yeah, for their artillery, exactly. And so they blew a lot of it to pieces, and then also a lot of it has been plundered over the years. So there's hardly anything really there at this point to look at in terms of Pumapunku.
You're drawing conclusions from a very small sample.
The speculations that have been drawn regarding Pumapunku are ridiculous.
Sure.
Because there's hardly anything there. But if you go back in the history and you work back from history and you look at what the Inca said, what the conquistadors said, Arthur Poznansky and all these different people who studied it, this is pre-flood. It was decimated in the Great Flood, which we know as the Great Flood. No.
How far above sea level is Pumapunku
13,000 feet.
So 13,000 feet, and somehow 13,000 feet above sea level, it got buried underneath 6 feet of sediment.
Yes, and most of us believe that during the time of the Great Flood, there was upheaval, and the whole altiplano, the whole high plain that's in Peru, Bolivia, Argentina, and Chile was lifted as one solid landmass. This is what a lot of people believe, by the way. And in fact, Arthur Poznansky did excavations there in the early 1900s, and he discovered seashells and calcified seashells and all kinds of stuff there that indicate that it was obviously at sea level at some point in time, and probably might have been a port. Which is very far from the sea, but it might have been. In fact, a little interesting anecdote is that the Lake Titicaca is the only freshwater place in the world where they have seahorses. There's seahorses in there. Yeah, it's an anomaly, and obviously
they didn't walk there.
They didn't walk there. They didn't fly there.
Yeah.
So
obviously, getting equipment from North America down to Peru, Bolivia has got some expense, and I've seen the trailer, so I know that you guys had film crew and took a lot of footage of these areas down there. How are you guys financing this?
Well, we wanted to shoot a professional documentary. We didn't want to, just do something that was so-so. We really wanted to do a quality documentary. So we had high expenses, a high budget, and we weren't able to do this, but ourselves. But by the grace of God, we had some very generous people come along and help fund this thing. And that's why we were able to produce this, because you know, these people came along and said, we believe in what you're doing, we want to help fund it. In fact, that's exactly how we do this. We rely on people to help fund these things, to get this out there, to help us go on these expeditions, because as you said, you know, we took a lot of equipment and professional team of people, and it's very expensive to do this.
Sure, transport, lodging, food, obviously.
Everything, yeah.
Where do people find out more about the documentary film series True Legends and how they can help?
They can visit the website TrueLegendsTheSeries.com. TrueLegendsTheSeries.com.
Yeah. And keep watching the SkyWatch TV store, because we're going to be featuring this video when it is released. It's not yet available, so we're just getting a look at the box right now. But we will talk more with Timothy Alberino as we continue. We thank you for watching as we keep watch. I'm Derek Gilbert, and this is SkyWatch TV.